Okay, first new video in the new setup, which is a little bit different, and it's kind of weird saying new setup because it's just a brand new beige wall, so get used to it. Okay, today what are we going to talk about? So I was thinking about this, I think it's Buddhist, well, maybe it is, or is it a Tibetan thing, I can't remember, but it's some sort of like Eastern philosophy fable or story, and it's meant to, part a message which you're supposed to understand. So let's go through it. And it's this one called, I don't know, the two monks? Shit, I don't know. So just to set it up, essentially two monks are crossing a river, and, because they're on some sort of journey, whatever, doesn't really matter what they're doing. And they are trying, they come to one end of the creek or the river, and they see a woman who's also trying to cross the river. And for whatever reason, I don't know, just due to religious, customs or whatever, those monks weren't allowed to touch women. They weren't allowed to physically touch women in any capacity. And so the two monks kind of look at each other and, look at the lady and don't really say anything. But then what ends up happening is one of the monks goes over and, pretty much helps the lady, he essentially, he puts on her shoulder or something like that, and, crosses the water and, helps her out to get her across the water and stuff like that, right? And then the two monks go across the water as well. The other monk comes along as well, and then the three of them part ways. So the two monks go one way, the lady goes the other way, and so the two monks start walking down the road a bit. And then the one that didn't help, is just kind of tossing in his mind, and then eventually, decides to finally voice what's, playing and racking his brain. And he goes, "I can't believe, you did that. You're not supposed to, touch women at all. I can't believe you did that." And the other monk turns to him and says, "Well, I helped her get across the river. You're still holding on to it." And then the monk that, initially raised his, protest or whatever, then kind of shuts up and is like, yeah, true. So what that story is trying to get across to you is the idea of attachment to things. And loss of attachment is something that's common, and you see it's a very common theme within a lot of Eastern philosophy and the whole idea of rejecting attachment. So one monk was too attached to the idea of, the scandalness, yeah, let's go with that word, of how the other monk, picked the woman up and physically touched her. And meanwhile, what the other guy is saying is, you're attached to the idea, you're so attached to that idea, that issue, that thing in your mind, and that in itself is, whatever you want to define it, a sin or a problem, you know what I mean? And that's something we do as human beings quite a lot when it comes to problems and issues in our lives. Even when the issue is kind of resolved, or even when it's no longer relevant. Because when you take the instance of the two monks, the monk got her across the water, and then that was it. He'd stopped touching her, or, stuff like that. So it was kind of it was over. But yet the other monk was still making a thing of it. It was still a problem. He was still holding on to that issue, that problem, and that thing was and that was vexing his soul, really. And so the lesson I think we can take from that in our own lives and what we can do with it is realize that, a lot of these problems or issues or things that we think are problems are more just, it's not necessarily the thing that's going on that's the problem. It's more just our attachment to it, us holding those feelings and those negative thoughts onto it. And so the only way to really relieve ourselves of that is to kind of just let it go. And that's what that monk is saying to the one that raised the protest. He's saying, just let it go. You're still holding on to it. We have walked, half a mile down the road, and you're still, holding on to that whole idea. It's you need to let that go. So yeah, I think that is something that as human beings we struggle with, because we like to kind of, I don't know if it's just a natural human reaction or some sort of instinct. We like to just, kind of play in our mind, like, roll over in our mind this, what's annoying us, or what's, causing us distress or, concern or whatever. We like to just kind of keep ruminating on that in our mind constantly. But what that can do is, like what in the instance of the monk, it can kind of cloud our vision and make us not either as productive, or it handicaps us in some capacity. So I think when it comes to your own personal life, and this is something I try to do as much as possible, within reason, within human limits, is try to lessen your attachment to things and not let things, even after they're done, affect you, because once it's done, it's done. So it's like, you may as well like stop punishing yourself, or or stop, spending time and even just mental energy on something that's already gone, and there's nothing that can be changed about it. So stop like restricting yourself, and stop limiting yourself by doing that. So yeah, I think that is something to think about, and something to look in your own life and think, when was there a time where I was holding on to an issue where at the reality I didn't need to be, like I wanted to hold on to it because it gave me something, it made me feel something, and that was better than nothing. So I held on to that thing, even though I didn't need to, and I probably shouldn't have. So have a think about that, and just kind of reflect on that, and think about in the future, if there was another instance where something like that would happen, or in the future where you go through experience like that, recognize that and pull yourself out of it, or try to pull yourself out. And I think just acknowledging it in itself is a huge first step to, like I said, kind of cutting that kind of behavior out. And there's nothing you can really lose from that, but and everything you have to gain from it. So yeah, give it a little bit of thought and see if that kind of works for you. And like always, thanks so much. Like and subscribe, and if you'd like to follow, please do. See you next time.